All right, gang, we are back at it like a bad habit. And tonight we're going to be talking about what does it take to not believe right here on Black Freethinkers. All right, y'all. What's up? Welcome back to Black Free Thinkers. And I'm your host, Pocket Locker 86, Dr. J. Bundy. Good to be with y'all. If y'all want more information, I got links and all of that in the description. I think I'm at solo dolo again tonight. So for everybody that watches live or catches this later on, thank you so much for rocking with me. Know there's a lot going on, so I appreciate y'all. Man, tonight is going to be very interesting because kind of going to be talking about something. I guess you could say I'm kind of in a sense going through in real time, and I just I guess appreciate having a space to get these thoughts out there and get some feedback on things. So I guess first I want to kind of lay out how I found myself in this thing. So one thing that's really important is I have a friend who basically said to me, like, what are we doing with a lot of these conversations? Like, okay, we're not believers, like we don't think about, we don't believe in certain things, we don't take certain ideas seriously. Um, but it still seems in a weird way like we're still obsessed with it, right? Like we're still caught up in it. We're still putting a lot of effort and energy and giving a lot of attention to, this thing we don't believe in, right? And on top of that, there seems to be sort of like you're trying to understand yourself, and it almost feels like maybe trying to justify or rationalize your own participation in this thing. And again, you could put a lot of effort and energy into that. And at some point, it's sort of like, where is this going? Like, what are we doing? Like, why are we still, in a sense, in the snare of something that we're supposed to have left? Like, of course, we're gonna feel like it doesn't make any sense to us, and of course it didn't. And there was probably never a good reason really for us to have believed it. And it does in a sense feel like trying to revisit in a way to get a deeper understanding when maybe there just isn't, it's just really not that serious. But I also want to talk about that in light of a book that I'm reading and going through and having discussions with my students in my class. And there's a certain how do I put it? All right, so let me lay it out. So the book is actually like he's talking about the sort of, I'm gonna put controversy in air quotes between evolution and creationism. Um and it gets really interesting because I feel like when you read the work from the perspective of a believer, you feel like the person is attacking your belief and like they're really um I don't know, to keep it simple, I would say like against religion or something. Um Even though I think he's very clear that he's not. Um and it gets to be a place too where I almost feel like we concede so much to uh religion in our society that literally there's a fear. Like I don't know why I don't more often speak about it, but I feel for some reason like I need to talk about the fact that I still have a fear and perceive a strong fear in others around me to talking critical about religious ideas. And lately, it's led me to a point where um, I don't know. It feels weird. I feel I'm starting to feel weird about a lot of the conversations we have online. Like a lot of the conversations we have online, y'all think about it. Like even a lot of people will say like, "Oh, I don't really do debates," or the debates are stupid, right? And then we'll say, "But like, we'll have the conversation," and you realize like we just did a okey doke and swapped conversation for debate. We say conversation now, and then we just go ahead and have the same old debate. And I thought about this too because I was literally watching a video and a guy was talking about three arguments for God or whatever. And he kept basically saying like, "Oh, this isn't about a debate or like winning the debate, but then let me show you how to use these arguments in conversation." And you realize like it's the same thing. Like you could call it a conversation, but it's essentially going to be the same exchange. And until the other, until these parties get to a place where we're having the same conversation and we can kind of influence each other in the same domain, it's getting very difficult to see how these things are productive. Don't get me wrong, I think they're productive in certain context or whatever, like actual academic settings for actual schools. Um, but I do see a way in which it feels like we're getting played by getting drawn into the same old debate under the guise that now it's a quote unquote conversation instead of a debate. So, like, I find that frustrating. But this other thing, and where I came to oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh my goodness.
Woo.
And where I came
Oops,
to Maya,
sorry.
get up in here and save this episode because people don't want to watch me.
Hey, how's it going?
But also, girl, I'm about to like I'm not like melt down, but
I
like
mean, you
I'm
kind of
really
are
thinking
though.
about some things right now,
You
Maya.
really are. So I came in here to save the stream. And I'm like, Jay's having like an epistemic crisis. But I mean, we're kind of in a like a what do you call it? Dystopian hellscape. So I mean,
We are. This is true. This is true. Which means that like it's kind of it's privileged to be able to sit in a place safely and think about these things.
these are facts. Sorry, I'm over here. my cord to my mic broke yesterday, so every time I go into a thing, like I have to.
It's all
I
right.
don't
There's
know.
a demon took over my studio, and literally like my remotes are controlling like devices from different brands. It's a disaster.
All right, all right. So, can you hear me? This is
Yeah,
not my
yeah,
normal mic.
yeah. I can hear you. Sound good.
All right, all right. I'm feeling good. All right, what'd you do?
All right. So I'm thinking about like how there's a way in which I feel like to be honest, like when we really do like have serious conversations about um at least in my case, like science and religion or whatever that looks like, I feel like there's kind of a company line of accommodation that is technically correct, but I feel like isn't necessarily helpful for people. And it ends up feeling like we do so much to make people comfortable, we
Mhm.
forget that sometimes people need your help, like evaluating things, right? And so, what I'm thinking of in particular is there is this critique of a certain type of atheist. And that's why I feel like people in this space will understand. And it's basically that atheist that to put it not to kind of just keep it simple, the science disproves God or whatever type, right?
Okay.
Um and the whole thing is like obviously it's it's not a thing we can observe or whatever, right? But I feel like what gets overlooked or sometimes misrepresented is that those people are not trying to claim they can like disprove God or something like that, right? They're making a claim that's more something like my understanding of the evidence is that it's overwhelmingly improbable that the everyday sort of common understanding of this faith that I was taught to believe is true. It's sort of like they're like I've looked it over and a lot of the specific stuff like isn't lining up for me.
So,
Um
like at work?
no, it's not so much at work. It's just more like um I guess you could say at work in a sense that yeah, it's kind of like the like what we're supposed to say as scientists type deal,
Okay. Um,
right?
s- so I'm trying to relate. Um, because I know you're an atheist and we differ there.
All right, so not this is
Um,
not so much me trying to be anti-theist. I guess what it is like I have this thing where it's like I guess the way I was thinking about it is this like
okay. Break it
if
down.
especially like coming at it as like a former like a believer, like somebody that was like raised in that stuff. It's really
Right.
like it's stuff people taught you
Right.
and it's things people told you. And it
Uh-huh.
feels like people are working so hard to like not challenge you about certain things. And that's cool, but you also kind of want to know if the stuff these people told you is true. Like, are these people
Okay.
BSing me? Right?
Well, You don't, but that's not you. Like, so it's not like you're struggling with that. You've already gone through that.
Yes. Yes, but I feel like when I'm thinking about the way people talk about this, I feel like that gets lost in the sauce. And the thing that it just made me feel like was it was and again, it's not that it's technically incorrect. It just
Hmm.
made it feel like futile because it's like when a person, for instance, like a lot of people who say I have faith and I accept science or love science or whatever, da 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 da. They'll say
Hmm.
something like, I feel like science shows me the handiwork of God or reveals so much
Yeah.
about the nature of God, right?
Hmm.
Um, and we'll be like,
And you have
okay,
a
that's
problem with
cool.
that.
Like, let's rock with that. Well, yeah, of course, because actually science says nothing about that at all, right?
Right, right, right. Well, yeah, they're not using science to, I don't know, unless you're saying they're trying to use science to prove God. And I mean, you're in a Catholic institution, and we both went to
Let's
Catholic
not give
school.
any details beyond
No, 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 I know, I know, I know. But,
that.
like, we both went to Catholic school. That's the
Yeah,
stance of
yeah,
Catholics,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
studying God's work will get you closer to God. So I don't think that
And also I shouldn't
just
just for the record, this isn't like the school. This is like me and
right. No, no, no,
this is
no,
actually
no.
like
We're
me
just
and the
talking
author of
about
the book I chose to teach. So this is a self-imposed problem. And also the
right, right,
author is
right.
like my
No.
mentor. So let's just be clear. This isn't
Ah,
me. This
okay.
isn't somebody I don't
Gotcha.
like. This is like me just being like, I'm thinking deeply about the tension
Mhm.
between my thoughts and his thoughts. And his thoughts are like definitely correct and like the party line. And then I'm always reading it like, but come on, bro. But come on, man. And I'm trying to like identify where is that feeling coming from. And it's this thing that he identified, which is weird, which is in a sense, people who think in some ways, and I have to say, like sometimes the way I think, in a way, like we do align with like fundamentalist Christian, like YEC types, right? Um, and guess I'm feeling a bit defensive because I felt like he kind of like he put it all in there, right? And it was like so rare for me to hear. In other words, like he basically said that like um you know, like there's a problem with these type of people, you know, they think like these type of atheists and these type of creationists like think alike about these things, right? Like they're trying to reduce God to observable phenomena and things we should be able to, you know, investigate scientifically, right? And so therefore they're both wrong about the nature of science and the nature of religion, right? And I'm like, yes, you're correct, right? And then he also notes this other thing, which is, and it was just like one sentence. He was just like, yeah, but people like that feel like what they're doing is the accumulation of evidence because he says the difference between those two, right? The difference between the atheist in that position and the creationist in that position is that the atheists in
Mhm.
that position are saying, I'm basing this on the preponderance of evidence about
Right.
what I've been told about God versus what I observe about the evidence of how the world works. And I was
Okay.
like, that. And that's the part that I feel like gets overlooked because it's really frustrating when people just treat you like, oh, you're one of those people who says like there's no God because science. And I feel defensive because I'm like, no, I'm one of those people who was taught a very specific thing, which is to be honest, what most of y'all was taught. And I needed to know for myself if that was really what's up or not. And so in a sense, I had to go through that process And I feel like sometimes people demonize people who have gone through that process, and it's like it just feels like no, like that was like a thing we kind of felt you had to do to like figure things out and survive or whatever. And it feels like it's important because I guess at least for me, like a lot of the things we were taught, I guess you could say, would have observable consequences or did make very specific claims about the nature of the world and reality that we, could evaluate or whatever. But yeah, it's something that I've had a difficult time verbalizing because I do feel like um, you get a bad rap for taking the stance that you use science to help you deconvert because there's not really a great scientific case for doing that more generally, right? But at the
Is
same
that what you're
time,
saying though?
huh?
Is that what
No,
you're
not
saying?
really. Not really. That's another thing that I think is a part of it. Like for me, like um it's very much like a pragmatic uh conversational consequence. It's like when I said God growing up, I had to mean something specific, right?
Mhm.
And when I'm reflecting on that, I mean something specific.
Mhm.
And oftentimes when people go, oh, but then there are these other things. I'm like, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of those other things that are possible, but they're also not what I meant when I said God. And most of the people when I'm having these type of conversations mean, right? And so then it was just sort of this frustration when you're looking at it in terms of like in a sense I was like empathizing with believers in a way and saying
Mhm.
this must be really tough when it works for you it's all good, and then when it doesn't work for you we tell you, well, you can't really use this to reflect or think about that, so I can't use this to say that that's not the truth or whatever, right? And so
Mhm.
then it becomes like, well, what can you actually use to evaluate your beliefs? And that's what it says. That's why I came with the title, what does it take to not believe? Because it's a question I don't often think of from that perspective of somebody trying to evaluate their beliefs and work their way um, through it. And I think that
Okay.
sometimes gets lost in the sauce, especially in like STEM education.
I I think we know that people don't really question it. Like I've known so many doctors and scientists that it's just like that gets it gets that religion gets compartmentalized. This is something that is special, and there's no reason for me to think that I should question it the way that I do other things.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And matter of fact, that's what I was trying to say. Um, I think I tried to articulate to my students that when we talk about there being compatible, that's usually what we mean is that
Mhm.
people find a way to do both, right?
Right.
But they are very different ways of looking at the world because they have sort of different values, which leads to like different ways to go about things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so
Right. I
like,
mean, our
yeah,
brains just really haven't evolved to catch up with this very new information world that we found ourselves in.
yes, yeah, and I also had to realize that I'm dealing with like fear, that it
Mhm.
really um what it feels like is there's a certain burden that comes with, you know, not necessarily, I'm just going to say anything other than confirming people's beliefs. Let's say it that way. People just don't
Right,
like to be
right,
wrong. Right. So if you're going to
right.
even suggest that they
That's the
might
brain.
be, yeah, there's already heat there. Um, and so it also feels like for a lot of people who feel like they did use science to maybe deconstruct at least particular claims, and they say that played a role in the whatevers, it then feels like scientists are telling you like, well, I don't know why you did that. Right? And so you feel like you were leaning on that for a little bit of support, and they're kind of like,
Yeah.
nah, that's not really how this works, which again is technically correct. It's just unsettling, and I'm trying to identify, why is this unsettling to some, right? To some people like me sometimes. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is,
I do.
so yeah, so I was like,
It's normal,
let's talk
very
about
normal.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, the brain, it, for whatever reason, wants to protect, beliefs. It doesn't, I mean, you know this. It doesn't like to, change course easily.
No, it doesn't. Change is like really hard. And also, it's also something people are not interested in. So one of the most fascinating things that I've had believers in my life say to me recently is that they're simply just like not interested in reevaluating their faith claims or whatever. And in a sense, like,
Mhm.
it's the most liberating thing somebody you don't agree with can ever say to you. Like, I'm not interested if I'm just not interested in the possibility that I might be wrong and you might be right. And you're like, oh, cool. Oh, cool. We can stop right here. Like we're, you're really good. And people are so rarely that honest. But it's shaken me, because that's kind of what I'm getting at with that whole thing. Because I know I just started and I was like trying to create context and stuff. I was just ranting. But even the thing about the debates, right? It's like, it's really weird, because I think people realized debates were futile, largely for
Mm.
for the obvious, because we weren't truly having a debate. We weren't having I might be wrong, you might be wrong, let's air it out together publicly, and maybe even have the people around us, add some context or some votes or whatever. It became performative, right? It became
Mhm.
like football or something, where you're just committed sides that are trying to beat each other, and you're not actually trying to influence each other. And then it felt like we moved away from that into the, let's have a conversation, and it's so much better because it's not combative, and it's just like, maybe we change the tone, but it's no more productive if number one is really just a fancy way to have the same old debate, which I think it is.
Well,
And then,
one, we never, in this space, there was never really debates happening. They try to do the format, but I don't think that most people in the space know, at least based on, results, they have no idea what debates actually are. So the conversation style made more sense if you're trying to have a reasonable discussion, or to really, to better, express your ideas, and oppose others. But yeah, it was always, um, two people trying to say I'm right, which I think that people think is what a debate is, but it isn't really.
or at least the not the way we think of it, like, ideally, right? I guess there's this way where in practice it's probably hard to um,
Well, I'm thinking
pull
about like
off.
debate, debate clubs, Toastmasters, like, like, like official debates where you're, you know, um, you get a topic and, you can debate, you have to know both sides because you could be on either side of it. And it's not really what we have here. I like the idea of the online. I mean, they're it's just bickering, honestly. Um, I like the idea of it, and it's like I've said. I think I've said to you a lot. There are people who will gravitate towards their corners because we don't like hearing opposing views. And the only time we will hear opposing views is if we follow our person, to this platform and are then exposed to other ideas. So I think that they can be very they can be helpful in that vein. But I've been very vocal about denouncing you bringing a bigot onto your platform and then like just letting him recruit
Oh
your
my
audience.
goodness. Oh my
I don't
goodness.
understand the point of that.
There's
Like
so much.
you go to them and you recruit theirs. Like you don't let them come to yours. And it's one thing if we're talking about like a debate platform, and I'm not going to give other channels like they're not even worth mentioning, but I think we all know who I'm talking about. But there's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of there's a lot of debate platforms like that on YouTube, on Twitch. You know, I'm sure on TikTok, where they're bringing in. It's like I only exist to bring other people here so that we can air the ideas, and I those are the platforms I'm talking about, and I like that because that's where you that's where everybody comes out of their echo chambers to hear other ideas, and I think that's important.
I'll just say toes need to remain up sphincters because I thought that message was getting out there and things were getting better. And then I've seen the, let's just say, recent and upcoming events. And I'm like, nope, nope, nope. Things are definitely not getting better. Apparently, people need to be reminded that playing poker with Nazis is not a revolutionary tactic. uh, but okay, so here's the thing. I'm also seduced by the idea of meaningful conversation. And I actually think that's part of why a lot of apologists and others have been drawn into those spaces because they genuinely are productive in so many cases in rapport building and relationship, and there's so many things that happen in the process, right? um and so I just realized that there can be a lot because I was thinking about particular types of conversations, like say in Arf's case, like counter apologist v apologist. It's different than you and a friend or a family member. It's just some of those, you know what I'm talking about, the sort of that
Yeah.
conversation content, let's say,
Mhm.
right? That was supposed to be a better alternative to the debates, and I'm like, sometimes yes, but also not always, right? And who is that like working for if the issue is, again, people are going into it with the same type of intellectual rigidity. um it's just like that's just kind of that's what got me
Well, I
going.
mean, yeah, but you have to expect that, right?
Yes, yes.
And this is what I keep trying to tell people. People get upset because like they can't change people's mind in a conversation. And I'm like, your brain won't let you focus on
Mm,
planting seeds. People have to mull
yeah.
it over. They have to think. They have to sleep on it. They have to hear it from a different perspective. Which is why I'm not, I think that which is why I'm not completely taken debates like just like, no, we should never do it. I can look at a debate and say, yeah, this was done badly. What have we learned? But there's been a lot of people who, like a lot of streamers who went to those platforms and was like, hey, yeah, or like that it just set it in motion, for them to be turned around. There's a lot of like bread tubers out there that got turned around. And, it was from hearing, another cishet white guy usually that they liked and, started following them. And then, instead of the bigot they were following, and they were like, oh wait, these are actual facts, it's not just this guy talking and saying things. And then they started looking into things and so on and so forth. And I'm thinking mainly like Hunter Avalon, because he was on when I don't really watch him anymore, but I remember following him and another of other streamers because I was trying to figure out the alt-right pipeline. And so he was one of those that I started following because I really wanted to see the path. What does it look like to get from, drinking the Kool-Aid to,
I don't know. It's pretty fast because they've poured accelerant on it. I mean, to me right now, to keep it mainstream, it's literally it's two Joe Rogan podcasts. It's the one that's like half normie with whoever the guest is, right? Which totally just legitimizes the whole thing. And then the next guest, he's got a total like conspiracy person on, a couple hours on Reddit, and you're seeing the world differently.
Right. And, it's like Jim was saying, the only time my mind has been changed instantly is when I'm wrong about undeniable information, not anything I personally believe for myself. That does take time. Yeah. And I mean, it's one thing if you're saying, I'm trying to think of something that's like, oh, like my employees. So during, I don't know what won't get, the stream flagged, but we had a health crisis, not too long ago. Like no, the world, right? And
hang on. That's loud.
I'm loud.
No, this my background was like making noise. Sorry about that. I'm listening.
No worries. Let me know when you're good.
Good.
Okay. So so during those times we were really short-staffed healthcare workers. And so everybody was doing just like tons of overtime. Within that period, most people got anywhere from $3 to $5 raises. But now that things are more stable, they're working less hours. And people are like, I haven't gotten a raise since I got here. And I'm looking in the system and I'm like, you started here at $20 an hour. You're making 25. Like that was 2.5 years ago. What do you mean you haven't gotten any raises? This is unheard of. And they're like, oh. And I mean, I think it still kind of like takes them a second to like get it in their head. It's like, and then they have to figure out, well, what's going on? And I'm like, well, when you're working 60 hours a week and now you're working 40, yeah, it's going to look like less. So yeah, that's one thing. But then there's, other things where it's just like, your wife is unfaithful or your God isn't real. How do you unless you can present like videotape of like, the wife, and it's like, I need to know that this happened while I was married, or if you have evidence of a God not existing,
it's tough. It's tough. And part of what I was thinking about was the the perspective from a believer, because in a sense, what happens is we have to offer them interpretation,
Hmm.
right? And so one of the things I talk to my students about is like, what are the things that people used to associate with God or currently associate with God, that we would not say, that we would say there's a natural explanation for or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And it's sort of an exercise because it gets you to think about, actually there's a ton of creation myths in our belief system. It's not just like the origin of species. There's a lot of things that we think of, or things we don't immediately think of even, that end up being like a divine origin story to explain them versus a natural like explanation for it. And it's everything from serious things, like I was talking to them about, like masturbation. Like some people like would say that that's a perfectly, natural behavior that you observe in other animals, and it's, part of having a sex drive when
Hmm.
reproduction plays such a large role in evolution, versus people who feel like that they're opening the door to demonic activity in their lives, because and I got that straight out of a video. Like I didn't make that up. Like, it's
No,
like yeah,
you're
like
not making it up.
yeah,
No,
like, but I
I
had them
mean,
just think about that for a second. That's a very different explanation of why you touch yourself, right? Like, why you may or may not. Let's say,
yeah, and I mean, and it's unfortunate because I know a lot of people that believe that don't even understand why they believe it or what the moral foundations of it were, and they would probably be willing to discard the belief if they understood, like, oh, well, this came from this medieval time where get into all of it, but I think that I don't know. And then most people, they have their pastor's faith, So
yes,
I mean,
very true,
it's
very true.
harder to, there's this guy that they love and has probably done anything at all for them, or at least makes them think very, good thoughts, or they think every Sunday, gets their heart attuned to God, and this is my ticket to heaven. And then there's Jay, who has his own opinions about it, what I should think. I mean, we're fighting. I mean, it's an uphill battle. So, I mean, I don't know. I think you're thinking too much about things.
I'm trying. Well,
Um,
now at least I'm supposed to be, because this is the gig at the moment.
sure,
Um,
sure. I mean, but
yeah.
in life, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
I
definitely. So that was
you
the
were
other.
thinking you're
Yeah.
thinking way more about this than anyone with those beliefs has put into the thought.
Okay, but then that's kind of the other part of this critique, right?
Okay.
Because part of part of what's difficult is, one, there's an entertainment aspect to the whole space and everything that happens in it. There's
Hmm.
also the whole social aspect. Like the thing for me is, this is where my friends are. It's where my friends congregate. When I don't hit it in a few days, it's not that I feel like I'm being stripped of learning or something. I don't know where the homies are at or what's going on. And that doesn't feel good. Um, so there's
I hear
so
you.
there's so there's definitely that aspect too. But what bothers me is a lot of times, like when I see other content creators, for instance, sit down with apologists. Let's just give, whoever a large atheist you like in Cliff and Stuart Connectly, right? And there's
Hmm.
always this sort of buddy buddy yuck yuck kind of smoking cigars and hanging out type vibe, right?
Sure.
And I'm always thinking to myself that a lot of those guys seem to be to me, like, convinced that somehow these are like good dudes, and it seems like they really just never bother to like look at or care about their actual views, because it's pretty clear to most people, especially I would say most marginalized people, that these are like the
Mhm.
bad dudes, like these are
Yeah.
the like Christo-fascist central right here. Like, and it's very obvious. And so then I realized that, like, for me, like, that's a huge part of the problem,
Yeah.
is that you get drawn into the conversations and the discussions and the whatever, and it totally can get set aside what these people are really about and what they're really trying to do and what life would be like if they get their way. And I think people are getting just a little taste right now. It's probably helpful, but you and I both know we've been trying to talk about these things long since they became
No, yeah, it's been a
the
while. Like
reality.
a
And
Yeah, like a long while. God, I
y-
remember, was it 2 years ago? Wow. Um, when we were all huddled and gathered, just like, why are people apologizing for Nazis? I don't understand this. Like, it should be obvious. Um, and it took us a while, but we came out on top. But yeah, I mean, it was just like, just because somebody is nice to you doesn't make you a good person.
yes,
And
yes,
I still beat
100%.
that drum. I'm
Yes,
like, yeah, they love bomb. That's their MO. I
yes,
need you to see through this so that
correct,
people stay alive. Like, it's really
100%.
important that you focus with me.
Right.
And but we're always the crazy ones. It's like, oh no, you're making too much of this. You're being too this, you're being too that. And I'm like, like the last time, like with me and Crystal, and we're getting thrown under the bus because of somebody that you did a video on, and thank you for that. Um, we weren't even personally offended. We just knew a lot of people who would be, and we're like,
Yes,
hey, ixnay on the slur sleigh,
yes,
like,
yes.
and you know, because I mean, because we knew it was a matter of time, if not later in the same stream, before one of those people popped up in the chat. And
Yeah, yeah.
I remember feeling grateful that none of them were in the chat at that time. And they're like, oh no, it's totally fine to say the slur. And we're like, no, no, you can't say the slur. It's an actual slur. And like, no, it's not a slur. And other
And
people were
isn't it
like,
so
what do you
crazy to be
mean?
treated like you're actually mobbing, like doing gang gratuitous violence to someone for being like, hey, you just might not want to do that
Yeah.
here.
Could you not traumatize my friends? Like, that would be great. And it's just like, you're crazy. Let me gaslight you and tell all your friends and try to get you canceled. I have no reason to hate you. Like, I'm truly just trying to like do you a solid, and you ended up getting yourself canceled. So whatever. But
Yeah.
like, it didn't even have to be all that. But like that is kind of like, I mean, I don't know. Like, that whole scenario is just kind of indicative of like how I feel every time I speak up. But I at the end of the day, it's like I can't not speak up because there's not enough people speaking up. And what I've seen, like, I've been in the community since 2017 or 2018. I've seen so many people leave, and not an insignificant amount in tears, just because they didn't feel like they
Mm.
had community anymore. And if just I say one person, I think it would have taken one person to speak up and say, hey, this isn't right. For other people to be like, yeah, I feel like that person. And, you know, those people could still be here. Those people could still feel like they have community because those people are non believers in red states right
Mm.
now.
Yeah, yeah,
And like, it's just such a lonely place. And even when you have online community, it's a lonely place.
yeah.
And I mean, people are really going to have to run me out. I can't. sit on that. Yeah, I mean, that there's somebody that I could be helping out, and all I have to do is say, "Hey, put the swastika away." And
Yeah,
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 yeah, there's going
yeah.
to be some blowback, but I'll at the end of the day, I'll be on the right side of history. So I don't know, but I think to like your point, it's just like, what's with all the gaslighting? Like, why do we have to go through this? Like, why is this so hard to see?
Yeah, and also like there is so much of that now. There just becomes a sort of okay, now what? Uh,
Yeah.
you know, there's just like, are we just gonna sit here and have this conversation endlessly? Because I think honestly, like there comes a point where I almost want to say philosophically, you can prefer whatever argument for God you like, because I can't I can't help you as a grown person if if that's how you make your choices about what, you know, what sounds, because I think that that's a lot of it. And then it's the same thing too, and it's like, I don't think for a lot of people, I don't think there is any sort of evidentiary thing that they would ever accept. You know, there's always going to be well, where did that come from, or what is the purpose of, or whatever question. And then we're always going to have to concede, I don't know, I can't answer that. And so to me, it's just like really thinking through, okay, well then, I know we're always going to keep continuing to figure those things out and elaborate on those things, but I'm trying to figure out, like, really, like, wow, like, okay, what does it look like if that's really where we're at? Because it kind of suggests that it just it's a different. I hate to say this, Maya, but it suggests that more people need to come down on where I think you see things, which is, how do we move people pragmatically to a better place for how they
Right.
treat other people? Because we're just not, we don't really have a tool to get us all on the same page metaphysically. And what I'm starting to realize is a lot of this is just people talking past each other.
Hmm.
Um, but it's in a very heavy way that we don't have an easy way to sort of correct for at the moment.
So there's no like great tool to move people to your position outside of propaganda. I mean,
Mhm.
which is a very effective tool if you try to get mass amounts of people on your side. But I think that that's outside of your realm of morality.
Right.
If you're trying to have the conversation, you're going to have to meet people where they're at, and that is it. It is a lot of conversations trying to figure out what they value and then moving within that framework, and it's going to look different from person to person.
Yeah. Yeah, though, that's kind of like the hard, cold facts. And honestly, like, we have in a real sort of dangerous way moved into this space where even what people think to be truth is relative to their values and who they trust, and on and on and on. And it just becomes like, it's tough. And I guess what I'm realizing is, um it's yeah, it's I think at least the traditional way that people see science and philosophy as, okay, like, I see, I've always seen, I guess it was a revelation for me to see that they did not support necessarily the faith claims I was raised with. And it's now a new revelation for me to understand they're not as helpful as I'd like them to be in helping people not see those things.
So who's they?
It's honestly like, for me in my head, it's just this ethereal normal person. They're just a regular Jane Doe number 3, and they're just out there trying to make a living, right? And they've absorbed a lot of different ideas, and a lot of things they've just never really worked through. I realized how much people pick up for other reasons. Like, I guess part of what I feel like happens is we start to have these conversations about what's true or not, and we don't first get on the same page about, is truth what we're actually after, and if so, how do we figure out what that is? At least not in a way that's like honest, because if we were,
Right.
I think we would realize, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, I mean this so sincerely, people have so many other reasons for what they believe. It's their traditions, what they were raised with, what sustains their current relationships, what gives them certain feelings and emotions or ideas, or quite frankly, what they like. What sounds good to them, or what gets them through tough days, or whatever it happens to be.
I mean, and
And
then
so
for
for a
a lot
lot
of
of people
people,
like that, they're not interested in, like I said, a lot of them are not interested in reevaluating those ideas. That's something
no,
somebody like,
and you also know that if people don't, if the truth doesn't make sense to them, they will make shit up.
yes, yes. And there's a lot there. Okay. And there's certain, I don't want to, I almost want to call them natural defenses. I don't know how natural they are. Maybe they're intuitive. What do I even mean by that? I'm not trying to do a whole nature versus nurture thing. It's just things regular people say, and I try to deal in that space because that's somewhat productive for me. Like, countering apologists, like we could do that. We could talk about that, but they're kind of a lost cause.
Well,
And
yeah, I
and
mean,
I
is it nature? Is it nurture? Yes. You know
Yeah,
this.
exactly. So for me, like, a lot of times people say things like, um, science doesn't explain everything or doesn't understand everything. So in a way, they do a God of the gaps, and I'm not saying that again to insult them. It's just how a lot of
It's
people,
just what they're doing.
yeah, it's just how a lot of people get down. And again, it's, when I think about it sincerely, in the sense of when it works for them, it works. In other words, somebody's cancer goes into remission and God provided the doctor and the medicines and the whatever, again, they don't take the time to realize there's a Muslim person who got the same exact care and treatment and result, or the great Christian who doesn't have health care and didn't make it.
Yeah.
But to me, okay, who cares? Whatever. Like, my thing is they sought treatment, right? Because at the end of the day, like, if we should count our lucky stars every time they don't decide to prayer cloth and hope for a cure. Um, but at the same time, I feel like when people do really start to turn over certain leaves and try to see if they're wrong, there's a way in which it feels like people have the tools to think you're wrong, but won't tell you they think you're wrong. And I find that patronizing and frustrating from the perspective of someone who genuinely wants to know if they're wrong. And I think I identify with that because that's what I relate to. That's the
Yeah.
backstory I have and relate to, is like, and it's one of the things that even disappoints the people disappoints me with people in my past. You know, I don't say
Mhm.
that there's nobody I have
Same.
like grudges against or anything like that, but there's some people who definitely thought my beliefs were sitting on some BS and
Yeah, and
just didn't tell
they
me.
wanna be nice, yeah, they
Yeah.
wanna be nice, they don't wanna, "Well, I don't really wanna, get into it." I just yeah, no, and I can't think of any one thing that but, I mean, I remember, like, let's say the people that I had the conversations with, and I was just like, "Well, why wouldn't you just tell me that?" And I was like, "Well, I don't." It's like I would have been open to it. And I guess I understand that most people wouldn't be open to hearing that they're wrong, but for
Mm,
somebody who
that's
values
true.
truth and,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just I
Yeah.
feel like you're not a real friend if you wouldn't tell me the truth. So,
Yes.
I guess I'm a little different.
So then what gets messed up is, and maybe you felt this too, is like so many other issues, then it feels like there's an extra burden of speaking up or even trying to open that door for people just because everybody else that knows it should be open just won't. And so you're again alienated and you're isolated. That's what I'm feeling. It's like you're re-alienated and isolated
Yeah,
because you're trying to figure out this next step or help other people, and other people are basically making you feel guilty or bad about that
right,
too, right?
right,
So
right,
now you're alone all over again.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's kind of a lot to go through.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And people say stuff to me now. Like they'll say stuff about my personality, and it's basically like, oh, you say bold and controversial things to people or whatever, and they don't realize that I kind of get my feels a little bit because I'm like, I just try to be honest with people. like, like tell me my opinions aren't welcome without telling me my opinions aren't
Right.
welcome. Like, wow.
No, yeah, I feel like I can be more of myself here,
For
like,
sure.
in the skeptic community because, like, everybody's just so used to Matt Dillahunty that, like, it's just really hard to, like, I don't know, it's hard to go hard, It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
but, but in my real life, it's just like, "I don't understand why you're attacking me." And I'm like, "I just asked a question." Like, I'm really trying to figure out what's going on here. And I don't understand why you're feeling attacked. I just I need to know why this happened so that I can fix it. Because if you don't, it's a root cause analysis. Am I the only one who's heard of this? Like, it's not like I'm mean. I'm not yelling. I'm not like you need to tell me now, bitch. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just like no. Okay, so you saw this, and you're telling me that protocol is this, but you did that. Can you help me understand
What you were
what was going
thinking.
on? Yeah, like
Yeah. Yeah.
why wouldn't you follow protocol? And she's like, I feel like, and I'm like, I am not trying to fire you. I swear to God, would you just please answer the question?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? I mean, it's just like little stuff like that. But like in my personal life, though, like I can't fire you. Like we're related. Like
Sure.
I would
Sure.
have by now if that were a thing. Like, you just please just answer the question. But no,
Yeah.
like people don't like being questioned about what they do. They don't like being told that they're wrong. I mean, they really get all up in their feels. And I think that, I don't know, what I hear you saying is like what I'm saying. It's like, I really am on a journey to be my best self. And I can't do that if I don't have all the facts.
Yeah. And also it's just so I'll talk about like the struggle, for instance, with my family, and I tried to mention this to my students too, but I think it's like it comes out different. So if if you're a doctor, right, or a
Mhm.
lawyer or something, right, there's a certain way in which you go off, you get your education, but people feel differently about you if you don't, in a sense, help the people from your community or that were around you benefit from that. And there's definitely an intersection between that and other aspects of marginality. This is especially the case if you're a marginalized professional, right? Because there's even more of that sort of aspect of expected solidarity, or that what you benefit from personally you'll use for the good of the people, or the wider group. um and so, you know, it's, or at least you have to tell your family not to do some ignorant stuff that's going to get them on the wrong side of the law or killed,
Mhm.
or, make sure they understand the value of washing their hands, and then, just little basic stuff, right? All the way to like, okay, Dad, let me really talk to you about how vaccines work, because I can't
Yeah.
bear to, you not understand this, given that I do understand this. um but there's a
No, I was
certain,
lucky. My parents were in the front of the line for
oh,
vaccines,
you
thank God.
you are lucky, but there's a certain degree to which you can't make them, right?
Right. Right.
And there's also a certain degree to whether you can influence them or not.
Mhm.
Even bringing it up in certain relationships carries with it a lot of risk.
Yeah.
um and so, for me, I feel a similar thing with my family. It's not necessarily being a medical doctor, but it
Mhm.
is something about being to evaluate certain claims, you know, being able to think through what's a good reason to not believe or believe something, and just more general stuff like that. But it still feels like the same responsibility. You're an educator, like, you don't want to see people around you doing ignorant stuff, and there's an educator right there. um so so that's part of it. And then what I'm doing really is thinking about, from their perspective, it's, and trying to empathize. It's just, it again, there's only so few people really willing to challenge them, that it seems like it must just be them. And I'm trying to understand that, and try to work through how we put ourselves in that situation, because it really comes down to even the idea of like, a lot of, sometimes I think the conversations we have online, I think in some real way they're like us. A lot of us, I'm speaking from the perspective of a content creator, having to work through it over and over and over and over, and literally like justifying it with, somebody on the other side of that journey, on the other side of the screen. But it's like, when people get older, say, I've been your age, you've never been mine. That's the great asymmetry in those conversations. Is, for a lot of us, we've been believers, we walked that path. They have never been on the flip side of that equation. um but at what point do you no longer feel the need to do that, and accept that that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to put it together in a way that's coherent, or convincing or motivating for somebody on the other side? It's just going to have to be good enough for you eventually.
Yeah, and I mean, for believers too, I mean, you're usually fighting against eternal conscious torment. So, I mean, that is a huge uh motivator to
Stay where
stay
you're
where you
at.
are,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I always say that people are not gonna put their eternal fate on the line for your ideas.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to say. And for me, it's hard to even blame people at that point. Because I don't know. I really remember being there where you don't even question, because, well, and again, having been raised Catholic, God is smitey. You just don't want it
Yeah.
to fade.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And there is a real way in which um people feel like there are fundamentalists on both sides and people are trying to work against fundamentalism. And it's weird to accept that there is this synergy between atheists of a certain bent and believers of a certain bent.
Mhm.
And um most people would prefer something a little bit more moderate.
Right.
Um and that's not going to anytime in the near future exclude either in the way that the fundamentalists would like. They're like, look, if we agree upon nothing else, we agreed upon the fact that we can't get along. But
Right.
but but they're probably in the vocal minority in that opinion.
I think most people are willing to, or open-minded towards, like, hearing the other person out. I don't know if you caught Nitty the other day. He jumped into a Christian call-in show, and you'd be proud of him. He kept him off the script,
Well, that's good.
and
Yeah. I always
they had a
I get
decent
nervous about those
conversation.
things.
Yeah. No, yeah, they were fundies. He kept them off the script. And it was a productive conversation. They invited him back, and I'm like, I think there's some comments in the chat. It's like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, normalize atheists. And I'm like, this is what you do. You get them in their field. I mean, it's one thing, I'm not
Wow.
saying, I know, there's call-in shows here and on some other channels, but um it doesn't have a really big Christian, you're really getting them one at a time almost, it's not a big Christian audience. Him doing that, normalized atheism on a totally different level.
It's so interesting that you said that because I do think that that's one of the good things that comes out of this content. And
Mhm.
it's hard for me because I'm sitting here thinking about how much I'm afraid to talk about what I think and stuff. And that's really something I should be focused on, but I like lose focus on because it just gets so exhausting. And sometimes you
Yeah.
don't want to deal with everything that people are going to associate with your atheism or the lens. Like there is so many people who it just changes the way they look at you, and sometimes you just want to blend. You just want you just want
Right.
to not deal. I just don't want to deal with it
I mean,
today.
yeah, I mean, it's hard being black all day. Then you come home to your safe space and it's just like, again, yeah, it's hard. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
it.
Um, Yeah, but that's what I got. I think it is. I think we should think about what it takes to not believe and how hard it is for believers because there's so many outs that I feel like if I were to go back in time and talk to myself or really try to have the conversation with somebody now,
Mhm.
it'd be less about this claim or that claim. It'd be more just like what do you believe that you will really that matters to you. That's where it's got to start, right? Like
Yeah.
what defines your beliefs or whatever for you? Like what's the, if you're Jewish, what is it, what does it mean to be Jewish to you that is bedrock, foundational, you know, and then you know, before we even get to how would you, how do you know these things, or how would you know if you're right or wrong? It's do you care if you're right or wrong, and would you even want to know? Is that something that would interest you? And
Right.
now I want people to just tell me not really, and save both of us the time.
Right.
Oh man.
I mean, I don't know. Part of me, I wish I was more adamant about people. I know that I'm definitely harder on people I like than people I don't like or don't know. It's like you can't like people like like I think I've said this to you before. It's like people think of you, they think of me, and if you say something wrong, I'm gonna have to hear about it. So just like don't do the wrong thing in public, and we'll just deal with it now. It's like I don't know. You're not allowed to be wrong in public if you know me, but it's only because I love you.
Yeah, and
But
honestly,
if
and
I
no,
don't love you, it's just like, oh God,
yeah,
this person's wrong. Let me change the channel. Like wanna I don't wanna like read in the comment section. I'm just like, unfollow. Like I don't it's not that serious to me.
and again, the other thing too is that people just don't like to be wrong, because for whatever they call the woke mob or whatever, you know, if that's what you call persecution, you can't handle being part of a marginalized class, because
Oh
again,
no.
people are just
No.
literally telling you, hey, please, you might not want to say that because, you know, you could hurt somebody's feelings. Oh, sorry, my bad, no worries. The thing that's so
Mhm.
funny is when you get beyond the political and the nonsense, you realize when you're in community with all people from different groups, is everybody fucks up. And anytime you're
Yeah.
actually in community with people, you know, I hate to say this, but most of my trans friends are not going to be offended if somebody accidentally misgenders them. They're just not. Most of the black people I know are not going to jump down your throat if you accidentally say something racially insensitive. Like, most women are used to people just saying shit that's misogynistic, that they didn't even think about how misogynistic it was before they said it.
Mhm.
And if you think about it, you're just like, my bad, didn't mean it, whatever. People are like, yeah, cool, no worries. And life just rolls on. And so when people are like, oh my God, you can't say anything around these people or they'll just come with the pitchforks and burn down your house. It's like, no, they'll really just be like, hey, you might not wanna. Like, and that's typically the
Usually.
beginning and end of it.
Usually. I mean, and yeah, when we get upset, it's because people insist on gaslighting us and saying, "No, this isn't something you should be
Yes,
offended at."
yes, yes. That's where
Yeah.
the issues start.
That's
Yes.
when we pick up our signs and start marching around.
Yes.
But if you're just like,
But even again, what does that look
"Oh."
like? It's like people sent you a link,
Mhm,
asked you to read something. And it's important that we think about these things though, uh, because of the whole Overton window conversation and the narrative. I always tell people,
mhm,
people say like, oh, you know, you hate extremes on the left and the right. And I said, yeah, and but it's always, you know, you could deal with people on the left a little bit. I'm like, that's because things have moved so far to the right that what passes for extreme and left has just become, again, hey, you might not want to say things that offend people, and here's a link about the thing you seem to not know.
mhm.
And that passes for like a declaration of war, is something we should be thinking
Right.
about. Like,
Well, yeah. I mean, part of it is like you're saying, like people don't like being wrong, but I don't know. For me, like I've been embarrassed a couple of times, and those are the things that really stuck. Those are the mistakes I didn't make twice, you know. And
yeah,
rather than
yeah,
saying, "Oh, every time I, talk to trans people, I misgender them, and it makes me feel bad," rather than me taking that as something displacing my embarrassment onto them and saying, well, trans people make me feel bad. I own it and I learn from it. And I
yeah,
try to use
yeah,
it to be a better
yeah.
person within the community I'm in. And it's not even just online. I tell Bree and Ember all the time, like there are just so many things that I've learned from you that I've been able to take with me into my personal life. And I you know you being who you are and your message makes the world a better place, because you have no idea how many people that you've affected that have no idea who you are, just
Mhm.
because people heard you and implement the things that you say into their daily life. And I know that that's true probably for all of us online at one point or in another. Like I saw, I was really excited. Austin Sims, I think, is in the chat, or I don't know if he's still in the chat. Maybe he got bored and ran off. But um, he started his channel not too long ago, and he was like, I heard you talking to, I think I was talking to Mark Reed, and I was saying, I need white men to speak up, because you're the door, right? If somebody doesn't like me because I'm a woman, because I'm black, because I'm trans, because I'm whatever the marginalized group they want to throw me in, me saying, "Hey, I deserve rights," isn't going to sway their opinion one way or another. They need to see themselves in someone, and then you become that bridge. It's like, well, if you will listen to them, then I guess maybe I can open up a little bit to hear what they have to say. And it's not necessarily talking for us, but just showing yourself to be an ally in whatever way that is. And so he was like, you know what, I want to use my voice to do whatever I can for the groups, because it's getting bad out here. And like, I can't tell you how much that made my heart swell. Just like, wow, there are people that listen to me when I talk. Who knew?
Yes. Yeah.
um,
No, it is. It's a privilege and a responsibility.
yes,
You have to be mindful of, what you put out there, but at the same time it's such a
it's a burden.
well, I feel
Right.
like yeah, but it's also like therapy. It's also like you
Right.
get to, like, tonight I just was like, trying to talk through something I'm currently thinking through personally, and to have a audience and you to help me do that is pretty awesome. Otherwise, I'd just be sitting on my couch watching Netflix or something.
Right. Yeah. Same. Well, I mean, documentary or something. But I I don't know. It used to enrage me when I heard people saying, it's like, you men need to sit down. And I'm like, there's not really anything going on that doesn't affect men, like even abortions. Men are having the conversations with women about abortions.
And Maya, I just want to say, because some people teased me for bringing up the pornography thing, okay? And enjoy your adult verifications. That's all I have to say. Enjoy it.
What?
Enjoy your
Adult
adult
verifications?
Oh
What does that
yeah, there's
mean?
certain there's certain states where now you gotta
Oh, I
provide some
heard about that.
ID, hit them with a face scan, a thumbprint, your social security number. You gotta really go through some hoops and some hurdles to watch your adult content these days.
I
So
heard about
everybody who
that.
who who thought I was trying to motivate them, I was trying to get them off the couch. I was trying to get them off the couch. They thought I was being hyperbolic. Enjoy your adult verifications. That's all I got to say.
I
Uh,
Oh man, yeah. There's a lot of states. Most red states, I think now which is so nuts to me because every time there's an RNC convention, the internet just goes like damn near goes down because they're all trying to use the tubes at
oh,
the same time
really? Oh, wow.
every single time. Like every time there's a
Wow.
convention, the only reason I hear about the convention is because somebody's reporting about the
Wow.
bottleneck to the certain internet sites
Wow.
in that state, which is
Wow.
funny. But
Wow. That's actually
you know,
impressive.
um, yeah. So way to go, conservative women for not you know uh giving it up for your men. Not that it's
Yeah.
doing much, but
Yeah.
it is what we asked you to do.
Honestly, though, can I just say something? We need to do a whole episode on sexual solidarity because it's actually a touchy subject, to be honest with you, because on one
Yeah.
hand it is like you should leave people's personal life out of your issues with them, but at the same time, if people were really shutting it down over people, having bad takes and being jerks, the world would be a better place. I just don't see any way around it. And the example I always go to is, I hate people that were in the KKK, but I put a lot of the blame on the people that made pot roast for them before they went to the cross burning and spread their legs for them when they came home. Um, so that's like a whole. I don't know. I guess we should say I don't think it's a moral responsibility, but y'all can help out.
Indeed, indeed.
All right, Mike, you got closing thoughts for us? Let's let these people go on about their
Um,
business.
Live your best life. I don't know what to say. I think that we do need to listen to each other. We need to learn how to have conversations. If we get through this regime, it's going to be because the people stood together. The whole plan is to divide and conquer. So if you're giving into that, you're letting them win.
That's very true. And make sure y'all check out Bad Science Sunday every Sunday at 9:30 at Maya Adkisson. You can find me at Pocket Locker 86. And all right, don't forget to check out the other shows on Skeptic Haven. Mondays we have the Black Freethinkers. Thursdays the Sunny Spot. Saturday the Global Atheist and Women Atheist Unload. 30 and 60. And Let's Talk on Sunday. And we want to thank the channel members. Michael Bell, Jester, Robin Webster, Derudy, Yahooligan, Manuel Puente, Karen Butcher, Ember, Al Trucker, Kelly Laughlin, John O'Neill, IQ, D. Murphy, Left Handed Jedi, Gene Spliced, and Pete himself. And thank you to the patrons, Dan D., Logan Fisher, Fern Lovebond, Amanda McLeod, Sidney Davis Jr., Eric Zoles, Ryan, Sunny Shell, Phil Calderone, Kathy Cotton, Tara S., Aaron Colson, Michael Wiseman, Deborah Grace, Jenna Yu, Jamie West, and Dan Murphy. All right, gang.
Oh wait,
Thank
you got a
you.
super chat.
Oh, did we get a super chat? Hang on. Hold up. Gotta get the super chat. Austin Sims. What does it take not to believe? Not sure, but maybe this $5 will help. Wish I could give a whole lot more, honestly. Oh, really appreciate that. Um, and yeah, I don't know either. What I do know, and I'll say this in response to the super chat, is um I want to think more about it from the perspective of still deeply, deeply in it. And the further something I've been noticing about myself is the further I get from my former beliefs, the more difficult it is for me to understand people who have those beliefs. And I think I need to do something about that because I've gotten in myself into a space, like I said, that's very kind of isolating, and it doesn't feel like there's enough people with my perspective to really move things. I need to figure out a way to just meet more people where they. Oh, all right, Maya, did you want to add anything for the super chat?
Nah. Thanks, Austin. You're awesome.
Austin, you
I'm,
rock. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Maya.
oh, yeah. Austin, find me on Discord.
Find me on Discord too, Austin. I'm on there. All right, y'all. Appreciate everybody. We'll see you next time.